So research question strategy. So it's important that, and we will talk a lot about this in the research philosophy lecture, because it's very important that you have a clear research question that is coherent with your methodology. Like if you are asking, how does this process work? How and why questions are usually useful for qualitative studies? Because if you ask how, then you need to go into detail. You need to go very deep. You can't answer, or it's very difficult to answer to a how question if you do a survey, or if you use a data set. It's very difficult. So that's a suggestion. Like, just be careful, just think about it. But usually how and why questions are useful for qualitative study. And what questions sometimes are useful for quantitative studies, because they are more like testing. So it's not a rule, but it helps you to make sure that you are coherent. We'll talk about this in research philosophy, so don't worry. Then another thing is that research questions should be specified and well-defined, and use well-defined concepts. So I have an example of a good question and a bad question. The bad question is, what effect does social media have on people who use internet intensively? So there are a few problems. Like, first, internet intensively. Internet is very broad. Intensively is very broad. What is intense? Which people? What social media? There are too many questions that come after a question. Maybe you can have one, like, even you can open it to internet, maybe. I don't know. But close the others. Make sure that intensively is well defined, that people is well defined, that social media is well defined. Here is the counterexample, the good example. What effect does intensive use of Twitter? So as you can see, intensive still alive. It's a bit open, but at least we narrow to Twitter. Has on the attention span. So attention span, you clarified with a concept of under 18s. So as you can see, this has clear concepts. It's difficult to assess that the question is great, perfect, but this is much better than the other. This one still can improve if everything can improve, but this is much better than the first one. So make sure that you use a specific and well-defined concepts. Another problem is that sometimes we ask questions that are very normative or that call for a solution, and that's not useful in a thesis. Like, for example, this question, this is a bad example. What should the government do about immigrants that do not vote? That's a very, how can I say, like, it's like asking God or something. That's a question that you wouldn't ask to a human, because it's very difficult to answer. The answer to this is, I don't know. Who knows? But this is a better question, much more focused on a conceptual issue. This is also another thing. Like, this is kind of a so big question, but this is focused, and it focuses on a conceptual issue. It incorporates a concept. Let's see. How does communication strategies influence the voter turnout among immigrants in Sweden? So first, now you have a concept, voter turnout. You also have another concept, communication strategy. And you want to analyze how does influence this and this in the context of immigrants in Sweden. Much better question. Maybe it can improve, but much better question than the first one, especially this one. This one, I think the only who can answer to this is God, or I don't know, whoever you believe that knows the answers to everything. So that thing or person or being knows the answer to this. But this, we can answer to that question. So finally, I think it's not worth having another video about the conclusion, because I want to show you where will the research question, where is it going to appear in your thesis. Generally, we write it at the end of the introduction. So after the problematization, after section 2, you have section 3 with the research question, where you usually write a brief summary of the previous 2 sections, just one paragraph. Sometimes thesis tends to summarize everything all the time, you will see. But you summarize the previous sections, and you state your research question. You just write it like that. You say, this is a research question. This is what I want to answer. So strategy is to write that. Introduce the research question properly, like just don't drop it like that. Also, like that's why you need that paragraph when you summarize everything, just don't drop it. And make sure, that when you write your thesis, you come back to the research question. Okay, so I think that now we are done with this lecture. Next lecture will be about the literature review. So this is a very important lecture. This one, well, everything's important, but this is very important because it's the first step. So I hope that all these strategies are useful. I hope that you feel more comfortable in this field of the academic work and scientific work. And well, I'll see you in the next videos.